In this next video, we're going to look at sales by customer and also sales by date. Now, looking at our present sheet called region, we have a pivot table that has been created, which is also named region. So to answer our boss's question, how we get our sales by customer and date, the easiest way to do that by coming up here and copying this pivot table. So you highlight it, right click, copy it. We're going to go into sheet 2 or a blank sheet and paste it. Widen that column up a bit. We're going to name this sheet customer. Then we're going to go to sheet 3, which is blank. And we're going to paste that pivot table, the region one, right here. So we basically copied the region pivot table. We copied it and pasted it into our 2 blank sheets. Did customer, this one right here, and let's rename it. We're going to call this sheet date. Let's go back to the sheet that we just pasted into called customer. So click on that customer sheet. We're going to see here it's not really showing right now customer. That's no big deal. All we have to do is remove region, drag down customer. Let's widen our table. You can see that we already have our header showing, the sales are showing, a little over 10 million, which was the same amount that we had for region. But now what we've done is we've grouped everything by customer. We have the ability to go in here and filter this information. I want to show Amazon and Costco. That's all it's showing. I can come back out here, remove the filter, clear it, and now everything is showing. So we have our pivot table called customer, but what we want to make sure we do is that we rename not only the sheet, which we've already done, but we want to rename the actual pivot table itself. And how you do that? By clicking on Options, Pivot Table Name, and we're going to call it Customer. Hit Enter. Let's create our chart. Quick way of doing it, alternate F1. We now have a chart by customer. Let's change the name of the title for the chart. =, customer. Let's go into our date sheet. So we're all set on the customer. The information has been done. We have a dynamic chart. We know that by just going in here and filtering. I wanted to show Amazon, Costco, and Google. It's been filtered over here and also filtered in our chart. Let's remove that filter so that everything is now showing. Next, we're going to click on date, the sheet called date. Click within here to show sales by date. Right now it's just showing sales by region because that's what we had copied. Move region out, pull date down. Let's widen our column. We have a very powerful pivot table that's been created. It's showing individual dates and sales results. Tremendously powerful. We're close to 684 dates here. Tremendously powerful information. So let's go to the top of our pivot table, Control Home. Let's look at that information again. Now the boss would see this and say, well, that's some great information, but can you break it out by year and also by month? This is one of the more powerful elements of a pivot table. It's very easy to do. We have our information grouped by date, showing it here. All we have to do is go with inside the pivot table, right click, group, and we get a dialog box. This dialog box is telling us a lot of information. It's saying that our initial date is on June 17th, 2004, which is very important. And the end date, the pivot table is figured out, is 6/17/2006. So we're dealing with different years. So what you want to do is immediately go down and click on years, so that our table is going to be broken out not only by months, but also showing it by years. And that's a good habit to get into. No matter what's showing up here, always click on months and by years. Click OK. We have our information. We want to widen it out. And we're now showing that information by years and also by month. We can click within here and show our chart, alternate F1. We have a pretty powerful chart. Change the name of that chart. Maybe for this we might want to call it sales by year. Might be just as easy to come in here, call it sales by year. Okay, we named our chart. Pretty powerful. We have the ability to filter that chart. Just showing the year 2004. And everything changes. Tremendously powerful. If I wanted to show just the year 2005, so I've selected 2005, hit OK. It's now reflecting that. This is what we're talking about, a dynamic chart. Showing it here and also here. And the small Y denotes that there's been filtering that's going on. Let's clear our filters. It's back to its original state, showing all the years. And let's make sure that we rename our pivot table. Click on Options. We're going to call this pivot table Date. Hit Enter. It's been renamed. Okay, so we have our pivot table by date, our chart, and the boss is so impressed with our work, he or she comes over to us and says, well, can you show me a pivot table with the information showing age and gender? And as we've seen before, it's quite easy to do. The Let's highlight this pivot table here. Highlight it. Right click, copy, go into a blank sheet, and paste it. Let's rename our sheet to gender. Okay, we renamed our pivot table gender. Here's our grand total. Everything is matching up. Let's get rid of these fields here. And let's drag down gender, the gender field. Widen our column. And we can see our sales here by gender. Now all of a sudden the boss comes to us and says, well, that's great, but can you also show it by age? So I'm going to initially drag this out. We don't have to, but I'm going to drag it out. I'm going to pull down age. Now all of a sudden we've grouped our information, our pivot table, by age. And the sales by age, which is powerful information. However, the boss looks at it and says, well, can you group that information and make it easier to understand? And the easy way to do that is by clicking within age, right click, and group it. Very similar to what we did for date. Group. Excel goes in and determines that the lowest age right now is age 18, and it goes all the way up to age 65. And Excel is suggesting that you space it out by every 10 years, which sounds reasonable. Now once again, you have the flexibility to change that. Click on OK. And all of a sudden this information is now grouped. We can also satisfy our boss's question by bringing down the idea of gender. You can maybe place it here, see what it looks like. That's not bad. That would answer his or her question. But you might also want to drag gender up here. That might be cleaner and easier to understand. I'm going to rename this pivot table, or before I even do that, I'm going to rename this sheet age. So instead of calling it gender, let's call it age. Come up here and then rename the pivot table itself to age. Options, pivot table 7, we're going to call it age. And next, in our next video, we're going to be looking at how to manipulate this information using slices.